before the FBI raid, before the federal courtroom in Dallas, before the headlines calling him the ringleader of a kidnapping operation. There was a kid from South Memphis who started rapping at 18 years old, caught the attention of one of the biggest names in trap music, and looked for a brief window like one of the most unstoppable new artists in hip-hop.
A home owned by the family of rapper Pooh Shiesty. The feds confirmed to Fox 13 they executed a federal search and arrest warrant. Neighbors reporting hearing flashbangs as agents entered the home early this morning.
Who is Pooh Shiesty? His name is Lontrell Donnell Williams Jr. The world knows him as Pooh Shiesty. He grew up in the Cane Creek apartments on the south side of Memphis, Tennessee, and started rapping at 18. His stage name came from his late brother, who combined his childhood nickname Mr. Pooh with the slang term Shiesty. He released his debut single, Hell Night, alongside Big 30 in March 2019, and the noise it made eventually reached Atlanta. Gucci Mane signed him to a joint venture deal with his 1017 Records label and Atlantic Records, one of the most respected platforms in Southern hip-hop. The rise was fast. In 2020, Back in Blood, featuring Lil Durk, peaked at number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100 and collected nearly 400 million YouTube views. His debut mixtape, Shiesty Season, debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200. At 21, he looked like one of the most unstoppable new artists in the game. Then the legal system caught up with him. 2 arrests in 2 years, one in Florida, one in Miami, led to a 5-year federal prison sentence for firearms conspiracy in June 2022. He entered custody at 22 years old with an estimated net worth of $3.45 million and a recording contract with Gucci Mane that nobody resolved while he was gone. That contract is where everything that came next begins. The woman in the picture. In 2021, while the music was rising, a personal story was developing alongside it. Pooh Shiesty slid into the DMs of an Atlanta-born model and influencer named Chianti. She responded. Their first meeting was at one of his video shoots.
He DM'd me on Instagram back in, about 2021. And I responded. The first time we met each other, he invited me to his video shoot. And I just sat there and watched him do the video. We went to the club after.
They went to a club after. She later described him as genuinely sweet, caring, and nothing like his rap persona, someone she laughed with, argued with, and loved like a brother and a partner at the same time. She was the first to say, "I love you." He said it back.
Who said "I love you" first?
Me. I'm a lover.
What was his reaction to that?
Oh, he said it back.
When he was sentenced in 2022, she announced she was single. The relationship was publicly over, but in June 2025, while he was still incarcerated, she posted maternity photos on Instagram. In the caption, she referred to her unborn daughter, using only the initials KS post reference. The internet immediately connected the dots. Neither she nor anyone in Shiesty's camp ever confirmed who the father was. The question sat there unanswered while he finished his sentence and prepared to come home. The comeback that lasted 6 months. On October 6, 2025, Pooh Shiesty walked out of federal prison early due to good behavior, having served approximately 3 years of his 5-year sentence.
Pooh Shiesty got locked up for shooting some dudes and was supposed to be in prison for 5 years.
The rap world noticed immediately. He dropped his comeback single FDO in December 2025. It debuted at number 22 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became his first charting solo track.
Come on now, son, you walk that walk and you talk that gangster shit, man.
It ultimately climbed to number 1 on both the Hot R&B hip-hop songs and Hot Rap Songs charts. For an artist who had been completely absent from the music industry for nearly 4 years, that kind of debut was a statement. The audience had waited. The appetite was still there. But underneath the chart success, the contract situation with 1017 Records had never been resolved. During his incarceration, Gucci Mane had publicly released almost his entire 1017 roster in a video announcement. "This is a decision I didn't want to make," Gucci said. "Today, I reached out to all of my artists, to their lawyers, and let them know that they're free to take their talents elsewhere."
Hey, what's up, y'all? Listen, I wanted to make this announcement on 1017 yesterday, but I just seen like my statement, my P&L with all my artists.
He framed it as a profit and a loss decision. He said he was looking to sign new talent. Pooh Shiesty was reportedly one of the few artists Gucci did not formally release at that time. which meant that when Shiesty walked out of prison in October 2025, he walked out still signed to 1017 Records, still bound to the man who had put him on, and still unable to freely take the next step in his career without that contract being settled. In the early days of 2026, Shiesty was reportedly offered a record deal by Yo Gotti and his CMG Records label. That offer made everything more complicated. Gotti and Gucci Mane had a long and well-documented, strained relationship. For Shiesty to move to CMG, he needed to be free of 1017 first. And apparently, the conversation about how to get free of 1017 did not stay in the legal lane. What allegedly happened next is one of the most dramatic moments in recent music industry history. What happened in that Dallas studio? According to federal prosecutors, Pooh Shiesty arranged a meeting with Gucci Mane's team in Dallas on January 10th, 2026. On the surface, it looked like a business meeting. 3 music industry professionals flew to Dallas for what they believed was a professional conversation about contract terms. The location was Luminous Studios in far north Dallas. Nothing about the setup from the outside suggested anything other than a negotiation. What prosecutors say happened inside is something entirely different. According to an FBI affidavit attached to the criminal complaint, Shiesty asked to speak privately with the record label owner in a recording room. The label owner walked into that room with Shiesty, Shiesty's father, Lontrell Williams Sr., and rapper Big 30, whose real name is Rodney Wright Jr.
It's deeper than that. I've been knowing him before rap. We only been rapping a couple years. I've been knowing him like a lot of years. Like I've been knowing him a long time, way before rap.
What followed, prosecutors allege, was not a conversation. Shiesty produced contract termination paperwork and told the label owner to sign. The label owner refused. Then, according to the affidavit, Shiesty pulled out what appeared to be an AK-style pistol and forced him to sign at gunpoint. After the signature was obtained, he took the man's wedding ring, his watch, his earrings, and his cash. When the group left that room, the other defendants in the hallway produced firearms and robbed the remaining 2 victims of Rolex watches, jewelry, and other high-value items. One victim was choked to near unconsciousness. Big 30 allegedly blocked the studio door with his body to prevent anyone from leaving. 9 people in total were charged. They were arrested across Memphis, Dallas, Nashville, and Atlanta.
Our crews have seen FBI and TBI agents going in and out of that house. The Shelby County Assessor's website lists this house as being owned by Lontrell Williams. That is the name of both Pooh Shiesty and his father.
The geographic spread of those arrests alone tells you this was not spontaneous. This was coordinated, planned across multiple cities, and executed with a level of organization that federal prosecutors described as a coordinated armed takeover. The U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas, Ryan Raybould, did not mince words at the press conference following the arrests. The victims in this case came to Dallas to conduct legitimate business, and they were met with firearms and violence. He described Pooh Shiesty as the ringleader. One of the most jarring details in the entire complaint is the presence of his father. Lontrell Williams Sr. was not a bystander. He was not waiting in a car outside. He was in the room. He was a named co-defendant. The man who raised Pooh Shiesty allegedly stood in that recording room while his son held a label executive at gunpoint, demanding a contract release. That detail says something specific about the nature of this operation, how serious it was, how planned it was, and how deeply into it the people closest to Shiesty were involved. The FBI did not move immediately after January 10th. 3 months passed between the alleged incident and the April 2nd arrests. That gap became central to Shiesty's defense. His attorney Bradford Cohen argued publicly that the delay itself was significant. The FBI doesn't take 3 months to arrest someone if they believe everything that was said on the night that it occurred, Cohen told reporters outside the Dallas courthouse. They were involved the first night, and then nothing happened for 3 months. Cohen went further, pointing to what he described as a case built on thin physical evidence. There is no contract. This mystery contract. They have no contract. They have no video of this alleged signing of a contract. They have no guns. They have no jewelry. They have none of that physical evidence. The defense team also noted that the FBI affidavit had been written by an agent with approximately 3.5 years of experience, and that the document contained internal inconsistencies. specifically around where exactly inside the studio the key confrontation took place. What the prosecution did have, according to Dallas local reporting, was location data from Shiesty's electronic probation monitor, the ankle monitor he was wearing as a condition of his supervised release from his first federal sentence, cell phone records, rental car records, latent fingerprints, surveillance footage, and social media posts in which defendants allegedly appeared with items believed to be the stolen property. He was on home confinement. He was not supposed to be in Dallas at all, and his own probation monitor placed him there. On April 1st, 2026, FBI Memphis raided a home in the Cordova suburb. Property records showed it was owned by Pooh Shiesty. On April 2nd, the arrests were announced. Fans flooded his Instagram with free him comments almost immediately. Chianti, his mother, and the court. When the arrest news broke on April 2nd, 2026, the public conversation split into two tracks almost immediately. One was the legal story, the charges, the courtroom, the FBI testimony, the denied bail.
Assistant Special Agent in charge of FBI Dallas. And we will have a brief question and answer session after their remarks. Please identify yourself by your name and your media outlet when asking questions and confine the content of your questions today.
The other was more personal, and it circled back to the women who had been closest to Lontrell Williams Jr. at different moments of his life. Chianti, who had built her own brand as an influencer and entrepreneur, found herself back inside a conversation she could not control. The maternity post from June 2025, the white gown, the baby bump, the initials KS, was being recirculated and re-examined in the context of a man now facing a federal kidnapping charge. The unconfirmed questions from 2025 did not get any more answered in 2026, but they got louder. She did not issue a public statement after the April arrests. She did not need to. The internet had already decided what it thought, and every post she made online, every caption, every story that went up or came down was being read for signals by an audience that had been following this story for years and was primed to find meaning in the smallest detail. That is what it means to have been publicly connected to someone at the center of a federal kidnapping case. You do not have to say anything for the conversation to be about you. His mother, Gladys Baines, made her feelings known in a different way. After the arrest, she dropped a series of posts on Facebook that the internet immediately started decoding. On Wednesday, she wrote, "It's power in the name Jesus." On Thursday, she posted, "My ears ringing, and Jasha keep talking, Chash blessings and blessings," paired with prayer hand emojis. Then, "I've been blocked, you hating MLs. Amen." The public debated whether those posts were aimed at critics, at the legal situation, or at both. Probably all of it at once, which is the only honest answer for what it feels like when your son and your husband have both been arrested at the same time. There was also a more unexpected figure who entered the conversation. A content creator named Julia Hill shared on Instagram an apparent screenshot of a message she had sent to Pooh Shiesty in December 2025. The message read, "PLS don't go back to jail. I had a phase my freshman year and you were my favorite rapper. Then I forgot ABTU, but I'm happy you're back. Just don't go back to jail. Past stop shooting at PPL. I love your music." According to the screenshot, Pooh Shiesty allegedly replied on January 19th, 2026, 9 days after the alleged Dallas kidnapping took place. His response, in its entirety, "Okay," and then dash, "Thanks." That screenshot landed on the internet with a specific kind of weight because the timestamp said everything. A fan had begged him not to go back to jail in December. He had allegedly already committed the act that would send him back in January. And 9 days after Dallas, he was answering her message with 2 words. Whether that reflects indifference, denial, or simply the behavior of a man who did not think he would be caught is not something anyone on the outside can answer. But the internet made its own conclusions, loudly and quickly. The court in this chapter of the story, in the weeks immediately following the April arrest, was not a Dallas federal courtroom. It was the court of public opinion, operating at full volume, with every woman who had ever been publicly connected to Pooh Shiesty cast in a role she did not necessarily ask for. What the federal courtroom said. The formal legal chapter of this story had its first major moment on April 8, 2026, in a Dallas federal courtroom. Pooh Shiesty appeared before U.S. Magistrate Judge Renee Harris Tolliver for a bond hearing. His legal team, led by Bradford Cohen, was there, and the prosecution was there, and the FBI agent who had written the criminal affidavit as Special Agent Brittany Garcia, with approximately 3.5 years of experience, was subject to questioning.
We had a bond hearing today and a PC hearing today. I think that the relevant things that were said today that I thought were fascinating were that it took 3 months to build a case. And I think the reason for that was because the statements that were given on the evening that this occurred.
Cohen used the hearing to expose what he argued were cracks in the government's case. He pointed out that the FBI did not have the alleged contract. They did not have video of the signing. They did not have the weapons. They did not have the stolen jewelry. He argued that the 3-month gap between January 10th and the April arrest was itself evidence of the FBI's own uncertainty about what had happened inside that studio. During the hearing, journalists in the courtroom noted that Pooh Shiesty rested his head against the wall and shook his left leg while Cohen cross-examined the agent. He allegedly shook his head in disbelief as details about Gucci Mane's statement to Dallas police were read into the record.
Scoochie, Tallahassee, I will be in the building tomorrow, so make sure y'all come out. I will be signing CDs and signing books and retrofit record stores.
His body language was documented and reported on social media in real time, becoming its own separate thread of content running alongside the legal proceedings. But the judge was not persuaded by the defense's arguments, at least not at this stage. Judge Tolliver looked directly at Lontrell Williams Jr. and said, "I find that the weight of the evidence against you is strong." She ordered him to remain in custody. She cited his prior criminal history, his prior federal conviction, and the fact that he had been on home confinement at the time of the alleged January incident, meaning he did not have permission to be in Dallas at all. She also noted that he had already been given an opportunity through home confinement and had not taken advantage of it. There was, in the judge's assessment, no combination of conditions that could adequately protect the community if he were released. The charges carry a maximum sentence of life in prison. His father, Lontrell Williams Sr., was initially granted a $250,000 bond with a $25,000 cash deposit, but prosecutors moved to have that arrangement revoked, arguing he was a flight risk.
His charges as an accessory after the fact to a first-degree murder in 2004.
The judge ordered Williams Sr. transferred to Texas to await the next stage of the proceedings. Big 30, the man who had been on Shiesty's debut single back in 2019, the man who allegedly blocked the studio door in Dallas, was placed on house arrest with a $100,000 bail. The defense team issued a statement saying Shiesty was in good spirits and planned to fight the charges. That is what defense teams say. Sometimes it is also true. What was true, as of the April 8th ruling, was that Lontrell Williams Jr. was back in federal custody, 26 years old, facing a potential life sentence, less than 6 months removed from a #1 record. Gucci Mane fires back and the culture splits in half. While Shiesty sat in federal custody and his attorneys prepared a defense, the other central figure in the story made his own move. On April 10th, 2026, 2 days after the bond hearing, Gucci Mane released a song. He called it Crash Dummy.
Well, the last thing that we heard from Gucci was you allegedly threw a girl out of a car, I guess down in Atlanta. What happened with that case?
Hey man, you think I'm gonna talk about that?
I'm just asking.
I'm just saying.
I gotta ask everything.
I'm just asking you.
It was produced by Zaytoven, Gucci's longtime collaborator, and it sounded like early Gucci, the era that made him who he is, the mid-2000s trap sound that nobody has ever fully replicated. The choice of producer and sound was not accidental. He was not trying to make a new sound for a new situation. He was anchoring himself in the foundation that nobody could ever take from him. He did not say Pooh Shiesty's name directly on the track. He did not need to. Every line pointed exactly where it needed to point. I thought it was a business meeting, but it was a setup. I walk in the room, you can feel the pressure building. Nigga dapped me up the whole time they plotting against me. He described walking into what he believed was a legitimate conversation and feeling the room shift the moment he entered. He described the sense of something wrong before anything happened. And then he delivered the line that became the defining couplet of the entire public chapter of this story. Tell the truth, you went out like a real crash dummy, and after all that, boy, you still signed to me. That second line is not just a taunt, it is a factual observation, because as of the song's release, Pooh Shiesty was in a Texas jail, denied bond, facing a potential life sentence, and still legally signed to 1017 Records. The contract he allegedly went to Dallas to escape by force remained in place. The plan, if prosecutors' version of events is accurate, had failed completely. He allegedly committed a federal crime to get free of a label deal and ended up more trapped than before. Gucci also reached back into music history to frame what he says happened to him. He drew a direct comparison to Suge Knight's alleged use of physical intimidation to force Eazy-E to release Dr. Dre from Ruthless Records in the early 1990s, the move that made Death Row Records possible. But Gucci's point was that he was not Eazy-E. He was not the one who buckled and disappeared. A nigga set up the play, like Suge Knight did with Dre, but I ain't Eazy-E, nigga, and this ain't back in the day. This 1017, the label, I built this shit from the ground, and I'd be damned if I let a nigga take my shit down. He closed the track with a single repeated line. I done been betrayed, now my heart turned cold. The reaction to Crash Dummy split the culture immediately and completely. On one side were the people who argued that Gucci Mane had violated an unwritten but deeply held rule in hip-hop by cooperating with law enforcement, by giving a statement to Dallas police on the night of January 10th and allowing that statement to become part of a federal criminal complaint. Boosie Badazz was among the most vocal critics of the move. The argument from that side was simple. No matter what someone does to you, you do not involve the police. The top YouTube comment under the Crash Dummy video read, "This the hardest witness statement out right now." It was meant as a criticism, not a compliment. On the other side were the people who argued that being ambushed at gunpoint, robbed of your wedding ring, and having a contract forced out of you forfeits any claim the other party has to street code protection. That if you pull a weapon on someone, you do not get to appeal to loyalty afterward. That argument is older than any of the people currently having it. It has no clean resolution. It never has. The verdict. The verdict. So, where does all of this land? The title of this video asks whether Pooh Shiesty's ex-girlfriend went off in court after calling him out. And the honest answer is that what happened was both simpler and more complicated than that. Chianti never appeared in a federal courtroom. She never testified. What she did was exist in the blast radius of a situation that started with a recording contract and ended with a federal kidnapping charge. She carried a relationship through his first incarceration, posted maternity photos with initials that pointed straight back at him, and then watched the second collapse happen from the outside, never getting a clean answer to any of the questions the public kept asking. That is its own kind of going off. It just did not happen in front of a judge. The actual court gave its answer on April 8th, 2026. Judge Renee Harris Tolliver looked at Lontrell Williams Jr. and told him plainly that the weight of the evidence against him was strong. Bond denied. Back to a Texas jail, facing a maximum sentence of life in prison. He was 26 years old. He had been 22 the first time he went in. The defense still has real arguments. The FBI has no contract, no weapons, no stolen jewelry. The 3-month delay before arrest is a legitimate question. This case is not over, but the judge's words are already in the record. The father is in custody. Big 30 is on house arrest. And Gucci Mane already said everything he needed to say on a Zaytoven beat, closing with one line addressed to nobody by name, but understood by everyone. I done been betrayed. Now my heart turned cold.